I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a regular business meeting of the Redmond City Council held on Tuesday, June 20th, 2023, commencing at 7:00 p.m. The community can attend council meetings in person, view meetings on Facebook Live, YouTube, RCTV, Comcast Channel 21 or 321, Ziply Channel 34, or listen live by calling 510-335-7371. I will call roll starting with Council President Forsyth.
Here.
Council Vice President Kritzer.
Here.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Carson.
Here.
Councilmember Fields.
Here.
Councilmember Khan.
Here.
Councilmember Stewart.
Here.
We have no special orders of the day. The next item on the agenda is items from the audience. Speakers will have 4 minutes to address the council. Council members generally will not respond to comments or questions directly at the meeting. Members of the public are welcome to email the council anytime at mayorcouncil@redmond.gov. The clerk has a sign-in sheet for members of the public to speak tonight. When the clerk reads your name, you will come up to the podium and have 4 minutes to address the council. The views stated by members of the public do not represent the opinion of the City of Redmond. And as a reminder, RCW 42.17a.555 prohibits any public comment during the council meeting in support or opposition of a ballot measure or candidates. And I just want everyone to know that we receive no request to speak remotely. And I noticed that there's a lot of community members out there, I think, who might want to talk about the 172nd gate. And just for their information, there is King County is holding a public meeting on Wednesday, June 28th at 7:00 p.m. on Zoom. And so that is also available to them as well. So I will turn it over to our clerk, who's sitting in my seat and has the timer and the list. Cheryl, could you take it over, please?
First on the list is Hari, and I don't think I can pronounce your last name, so if you could say that into the microphone podium, that would be great.
Hello, my name is Hari, and I live on the King County side of the gate. First of all, I wanted to thank the mayor, thank all of the council members for giving us this opportunity to come and express our concerns with this project. First of all, a lot of us were here last week, and I think we raised questions about whether due process is being followed here. And thanks for organizing that meeting next week. A lot of us do plan to dial in. It'll also be nice if it was an in-person meeting, either in the school or somewhere in the community. That'll be easier for people to attend and people to kind of participate in that discussion. My daughter, she's 3 years old. She'll be going to the Clara Barton School, even though we are on the county side of that gate. The school district is still, the primary school will still be Clara Barton, and she'll basically be walking on that 172nd Street, 172nd Avenue. And on the county side of the gate, there are no pedestrian footpaths today, and that's okay today. It doesn't matter because there's probably one car every 10 minutes on that road, and it's all community traffic, so it's not an issue. But if this road does get opened, then there's going to be a lot more traffic on that road, which means that safety measures need to be put in place prior to opening of the gate. The other point I wanted to make, just give me a minute. The flyer that was sent by the city, I actually want to make a point that everybody understands that the flyer was very, very misleading. It basically says that the traffic, the speed of traffic on that road will actually reduce. It may very well be true, right? There's this proposal for a couple of roundabouts, and the average speed of vehicles may reduce marginally, but there's going to be significantly more traffic, which basically means that if you're walking on that street, you're not going to feel any safer after this gate is open. So, and that was one thing, and then it also, the flyer from the city basically said there's going to be reduction in cut-through traffic if that gate was open. And I don't understand how there will be reduction in cut-through traffic. By definition, cut-through traffic is traffic that passes through a neighborhood where origin and the destination is not in that neighborhood. And anybody who has been on that road will know that if the gate is open, there's going to be more cut-through traffic, not less. So at a very minimum, the flyer from the city seems to be misleading, or it may be intentionally misleading, but something that the city may want to kind of look at. And the other thing, the project proposal seems to suggest that the safety measures that even the city thinks are necessary, which we think are inadequate, even those, it says, will come in phase 2, which basically means that we are going to open this gate, there's going to be a lot more traffic, there's a potential for a lot more accidents, but the safety measures will come later. That seems to be counterintuitive. You will want the safety measures to come first. Whether the safety measures that are being proposed today is enough or not, that's a different question, but in any opening of a gate like this, the safety measures should come first. Thanks for this opportunity.
Next is Megan Cap.
Hi, my name is Megan Cap, and I live on the King County side of the gate, and I'd like to raise awareness to some of the concerns I have towards public safety with the gate being opened. So I competitively run for Redmond High School's cross-country team and their track team. We frequently run down what we call EHOB, which is English Hill and back. So we run from the high school all the way past Clara Barton, past the gate to the stoplight and back. This is one of our favorite workouts because it's extremely safe with the fire gate preventing traffic on the King County side and all of the like precautions like sidewalks and roundabouts and speed bumps and all that type of thing to slow traffic and makes it a really nice run for everyone. And my question is, or my concern is there's a lot of lack of like speed bumps and sidewalks, just public safety being put in with the gate being opened, and I am just concerned about all of these school children that walk to Clara Barton frequently, and all of the like runners, and just about the citizens in the area. Because for me personally, I am out on the street a lot with all of my runs and all that type of thing, and I see how many people use this road as a way to interact with the community and to just walk and enjoy the outdoors. And if it turns into a very heavily trafficked area, I feel like that would prevent a lot of people from enjoying that, and it would be a safety concern in my opinion. Thank you so much.
William Cap, and following that is Dave Roth.
Hi, I'm a sixth grader at Redmond Middle School, and I ride the bus to and from school. If you open the gate, it would be dangerous for my bus to stop at 172nd, and dangerous for me to cross the road to get to my bus stop. My bus also stops in front of Clara Barton, where 60 kids around get on and off, and they go in all directions. I feel that it'd be more dangerous if you open the gate from speeding cars and inconsiderate drivers if you open the gate, and it will be more dangerous. When I went to Clara Barton, I walked to school every day just like everyone in my neighborhood. All my friends walked to school. There isn't a bus option for us because we live so close. Opening the gate would cause dangerous traffic, stopping the ability we have to walk to school safely. I love biking and walking around my neighborhood with my family. If you open the gate, you would turn my neighborhood into a major road. I hope you consider students and kids like me before you turn my safe road into a dangerous place.
Dave Roth, and following is Gina DeBlains.
Okay, did you say following?
So Dave Roth right now. Oh, okay. Is Dave here? It doesn't look like Dave is here, so how about Gina DeBlains?
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. I'd like to say that I've lived in this neighborhood north of the gate for 18 years. And it's been an amazing, beautiful experience. We're known as the Big Candy House on Halloween. We enjoy, yay, the big candy. We enjoy and love having free-range children. It goes back to when I was a child, when children are allowed to walk around freely because they weren't in danger. What I feel what will happen when you open this gate is irreversible harm to the safety of our neighborhood children, our wildlife that we enjoy, and our community in general. We have a very large elderly community, and it's wonderful and beautiful to watch them stroll up and down the streets with safety, no concerns, quiet enjoyment. Sometimes you hear a couple squeaks because you'll see a bear walk by through your front yard, or a deer, which is absolutely majestic and beautiful, as they make their way from the natural ponds and waterways. My concerns are that with this proposal that there hasn't been due process or the right types of proper traffic analysis for the type of throughput when you open that gate. Numbers have been estimated of 5,000 cars per day. So if we stood here and counted to 7 seconds, a car every 7 seconds will be passing in front of my house. Selfish concerns, what will I put my waste bins? Waste bins up and down our streets, where do we place them? We're told that there won't be the proper sidewalks, gutters, runoff. So the environmental impact, the safety concerns. It was brought up that the emergency vehicles, that they were wanting this gate open. The gate is for them. And it actually, they've said that no, they haven't asked for it to be open. It'll be a pinch point, as a matter of fact. The road narrows considerably past the gate. So the traffic for fire engines and emergency vehicles, it'll be a burden. It'll be an issue for them. As a matter of fact, it'll slow the response time, is what we're told. I made a list, so bear with me. The decision is being made by a public works director who does not have a traffic planning expertise. So what we're asking as part of the 172nd neighbors and friends of is that the proper due process, the proper analysis by the proper professionals are put in place, and to bear in mind that when city planners are creating communities, we have that community and we want to keep that community, and that's why we're here. Thank you.
Next is Andy Rothman, and following Andy is Rahul Kashikar.
Hello. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Andy Rathman. I live in the Grayson neighborhood, which is at the southwest corner of the roundabout of 116th, 172nd. We've lived there for 18 years. Going back to 2006, we worked very closely with the council and members of the transportation staff to put in place traffic calming and try to, negotiate improvements on the 172nd section of 176th section between 111th and 116th. I have a couple concerns. Obviously, everyone's very concerned about the number of cars going down 172nd and in particular the speed of those cars. There are a lot of kids, not just who go to Clara Barton, but there are a lot of kids who cross the roundabout at 116th and 172nd to go to Einstein, to visit friends, to go between the neighborhoods. It's a pretty close-knit community. And frankly, 116th and 172nd, South 116th are already areas where we see a lot of speeding and there's a lot of concern about traffic, but I won't go into them any further. When we first started talking to the city about 172nd almost 20 years ago, a lot of discussion involved, well, what is the purpose of the 172nd, 166th Street down to Redmond? And at the time, it was kind of presented to us as this will be a multimodal corridor, and that was presented as meaning not really specifically for cars, but for intra-neighborhood traffic, for bicyclists, for buses, for pedestrians, really designed not to be, you know, a high speed thoroughfare, but really meant to be just a way of connecting connecting neighborhoods. And the statement was that commuter traffic would be routed down to Avondale or routed to 202 off the hill. And that was something that I think everybody could get on board with. It feels like now, you know, almost 20 years later, there's a new group of people that I have not talked to in the past, but you know, discussing the process a little bit, as my daughter would say, it's a little sus. We haven't gotten any notifications in our neighborhood about the gate opening. I've only heard what I've heard through, you know, other contact with neighbors. I kind of hear rumblings that and again, I don't know if this is true or not, that there is discussion of, you know, well, gee, we should alleviate the traffic on Avondale and 202 by allowing more traffic to route down through 172nd to get to downtown Redmond. If that's a goal I would very much be against, because again, 172nd, 166th, they go past multiple schools, multiple choice churches. Kids are walking back and forth along that entire length of the thoroughfare all year round. Having said that, you know, I think the way forward is somehow to rebuild trust. I think that, personally, I think that if we could all agree that 172nd is meant purely for intra-neighborhood traffic, which would not be a lot of cars, if we make, you know, if traffic calming measures were put in place that were really serious, that would make it so that if you live in English Hill and you want to get to downtown Redmond, you think to yourself, well, I don't want to take 172nd because it's just a pain. I would rather go on or Avondale. I think that if it were determined that like there would be very little additional traffic, I think that, you know, you would find people a little less concerned. But to date, I'm very concerned. Thank you.
Up next is Rahul Kashikar, and following Rahul is Elizabeth Sorensen.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity. Really appreciate it. So, have a couple of points. Probably won't take 4 minutes here, but we bought our house back in 2014 because we absolutely love Redmond and we love the area where we live, actually. One of the biggest reasons why we wanted to buy that house was that it was closed community. It was at a dead end, and so ours is on the Redmond city side, the last house before the gate. And one of the concerns that we had when we bought the house was if this gate was ever going to open to traffic. Our builder told us no, but we didn't trust the builder, so we came down to City Hall. We actually inquired, so will this road be ever open? And we were told that, like, no, we don't have any plans to open the road. If we have to, you know, do something about traffic, our first priority is going to be putting a traffic light at 162nd and 124th Avenue. Years pass by, and all of a sudden, last week, I just get a flyer saying that, oh yeah, by the way, we are going to open up the road. So definitely would like to understand more reasoning behind it from all of our neighbors. What we hear that the last traffic study that was done was somewhere around 2005, 2006 timeframe. A lot has changed since that time in Redmond, and especially in our area. So definitely like to kind of see the revised numbers and new traffic studies to be done to you know, in order for putting the right safety measures. And everybody who spoke here before me kind of pointed out all the safety concerns. Since our house is last one, we actually see literally on a daily basis, entire summer long, you know, all the toddlers and, you know, young kids walking with their grandparents, you know, pulling their bicycles, pulling their carts, literally on a daily basis. that's all going to go away if we open this up for traffic. So we want to kind of make sure that, we do the due process here, and also kind of have some voice for us in terms of how we can preserve that close neighborhood feel that we all love and enjoy every day. So, thank you.
Up now is Elizabeth Sorensen, and following Elizabeth is Roman.
Thank you and good evening. I am a proud resident of over 20 years of the city of Redmond. About 2 years ago, my husband and I and our daughter moved from the North Star neighborhood in Redmond over to the Glenshire neighborhood, which is very near the gate at 172nd. One of the main reasons that we moved is we wanted to stay in the city of Redmond. We like the city, but we were really concerned with the traffic in the North Star neighborhood, specifically on 167th Street. So I am here, as you might guess, to voice my strong opposition to opening the gate at 172nd for a couple of reasons. One, public safety. We're very close to an elementary school, Clara Barton Elementary, and we constantly, throughout all hours of the day, have people of many ages walking through our neighborhoods. People with their pets, kids on scooters, people on bikes. It's a really beautiful thing to see multi-generational families just enjoying being outside and walking through the neighborhoods. I can promise you that if that gate goes away, people are not going to be able to walk safely anymore, because people already drive way too fast through that area, and that's even with the school and the flashing lights. But to open that gate, people will really pick up speed, and it'll no longer be a safe place for all sorts of families to walk. Secondly, I'm concerned about the due process. When we moved from the North Star neighborhood to the Glenshire neighborhood, we had our realtor call the city, and we called as well, because we were concerned about traffic, and we wanted to make sure that that gate would stay closed. And we were both told, our realtor and us, that there were no plans in the future to open that gate, and if there were, there would be a number of hearings on it that we could comment on. So my second concern about the gate is a lack of due process. We just received one flyer in the mail that said that the project was happening. It would happen in the next week, and then we started to hear jackhammers because we're close enough to it where we can hear that the pre-work has started. So we're concerned about the lack of ability for citizens to give input. And then thirdly, opening this gate without due process, and given the major concerns of public safety, it's not congruent with the values and the mission stated by the city. It's not livable, it's not accessible, it's not inclusive, it doesn't have accountability, and it's going to affect everyone's safety. So, please, I appreciate the opportunity for my neighbors and I to come here and talk to this. We're very concerned, and thank you.
Up now is Roman. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your last name. And following Roman is Sribala Magesh.
Roman has to go, and you'll be right back.
Okay, so it looks like it'll be Sribala Magesh then. Thank you.
Good evening, council members and mayor, and all the Redmond residents for being here tonight. As you know, I'm here also to address the concerns of the 172nd gate opening. We moved here in 2014 to this community, but we've been Redmond residents for more than 20 years. We bought our dream home with a promise from the builder that the gate will remain closed. The 172nd corridor went through a lot of changes. Clara Barton School was built, more homes were built, walking traffic increased, and the whole time, residents were concerned about the speeding and the safety of everyone living in this area. I personally know of a friend who lost her pet due to a speeding accident. A child from Safety Patrol shared, quote, "It's scary. Nobody stops. They keep going even though we wave our safety flags," end quote. Imagine the horror of this little boy when he sees the car speeding in his direction. This is the situation when the gate is closed. I am terrified of the consequences when that narrow street becomes a thoroughfare. 5,000 cars per day, one car every 7 seconds. And the road is only 15 feet wide and is not even wide enough for a regular traffic. And these numbers send shivers down my spine. Please take our concerns and worries into account and allow us to enjoy our community without having to fear for our safety every second or every day. Thank you.
Up now is Appa Kumar, and following Appa is Amber Datoli.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. I'm here to raise the concern about the gate. I live in the community. I walk every single day, most of the time twice a day. I walk past Clara Barton. My daughter is a teenager. She walks whenever she needs a break from her schoolwork, homework, or whatever teenagers need a break from. And I can let her walk because I know it's a safe community. I can let her walk to Smithwoods, tell her, be home before the bears are out. That's the only concern that I have. And I want it to stay that way because we are enjoying this. Every single day, I see kids, parents, grandparents, multi-generational family walking there, Clara Barton. And then we feel, this is good. Can we be a little bit safer? Can we stop split second more at that always stop, even though school is not on? Just imagine the number of cars. If that's increased on that always stop, one blink, one few seconds late, and there would be a collision. It's a single lane road. Do we want that? Do we want to get there? That's my biggest concern. As it is, it's a full community, multi-schools. We are enjoying it. It's concerning that this will become a safety hazard for all. So my thing is, let's think this through. If we have to plan, there has to be a due process. I don't know whether it was followed. It didn't feel like I knew enough. We are here as residents to raise our concern. I would like to go out on for walks maybe like forever, without worrying about how late or how dark it is. Can somebody see me? How many cars with drivers are distracted enough to not even notice how many people are there on the sidewalks? Thank you.
Up now is Amber Datoli, and following Amber is Noam Topaz.
Hello, thank you for your time. I live on Windstone and 172nd and 120th. I'm a parent of an RHS student, an RMS student, and a Clara Barton student. I'm also a founding member of the PTSA for Clara Barton and current member. I'm here because I'm concerned about our most vulnerable citizens in Redmond, which is our children. Because I am at the school every day, I know that our school is short 23 crossing guards for next year. Also, because of budget cuts, we don't have as many AI staff, and those people who actually do many things within our school, but also focus on our safety patrol, we are going to be short-staffed with that. And it's very concerning because just a few weeks ago, one of the student crossing guards were holding out their flag, and the flag was struck because the person did not stop. These 10 and 11-year-old kids are pretty scared because the traffic comes in there very fast. I myself, just on Monday, was in the middle of the crosswalk, and someone drove right around me, almost striking my son. So opening that gate is very fearful for those students because what are they going to do? They're not speed bumps. They can't stop the traffic, and it's just going to increase with just opening that gate. Another concern of mine is, have we thought about, next to that gate is the highway for the animals. That is one of the last ways for the animals to get to the remaining wooded areas in that area without being struck by a car. We lost a bear just last summer, a baby cub, which is very sad. And are we thinking about those kind of things as well, not just because of our children, but the wildlife around there? And I know many people say they see people out walking and whatnot. Clara Barton isn't just a school. It is actually a community hub. It is packed. I've been at school all day today. I left straight from the school, straight here, and there were, I think I counted 15 children and 6 families out at that school, and it was 6:30 at night. That school is packed with people until the sun goes down, and opening up that road is going to rob our community of that safe space. I will not be able to have my son just go up the street and be able to play. I'm going to be worried that he's going to be struck by a car. So I ask for the city to please put safety first in regards to opening that gate. Thank you.
Up now is Noam Topaz, and following Noam is Linda Seltzer.
Good evening. Thank you for holding this meeting. I want to take this in a slightly different way. Our family lives adjacent to Clara Barton, and in 2016, I attended the public hearing for the groundbreaking of the Clara Barton School, and specifically asked the question back then, what is going to happen with 172nd Street? And the answer I got from the city engineer was that they would first build a roundabout for the road coming down from 124th Avenue and the intersection with 162nd Place. In fact, the answer that he said is, if you don't see any work on the roundabout, that means that the gate is still going to remain closed. Well, it looks like plans have changed, and we luckily heard about this by sheer accident. I'm actually just learning about this, in the recent past. And I have one question. All the plans that you're putting out here about the staggering safety measures and all the other issues that were brought in the plan, why should we believe you that you're going to stick to those plans either? It's not clear. If you're saying something and then changing it without even letting us know, how would we know that these plans are going to be kept the way you're communicating them? Thank you.
Up now is Linda Seltzer. Following Linda is Shai Gaudet.
I'm speaking to strongly oppose AM number 23-086, an ordinance establishing an optional pilot program for a 12-year multifamily housing property tax extension. Ordinance number 3125, amending RMC 3.38. Please do not approve this. Do not rush with this. Do not do this. It's dangerous and harmful. This ordinance is a regressive tax policy, deprives King County of large amounts of revenue, enables rent inflation, codifies unaffordable rents under the guise of affordability, shuts out middle-income workers, senior citizens, and persons with disabilities, thwarts the ability to save for a home, gives building owners a gigantic tax break that others don't receive. It is a misuse and misdirection of the concept of the missing middle, and it fails to provide a renter's rebate for low and middle income renters, which is really the answer to the issue of renters and property taxes. The ordinances passed by an incorporated city supersede county ordinances, so this could override more stringent rent levels in place already for apartment buildings to qualify for a 50% property tax exemption by providing low-income senior housing. There are such housing units in downtown Redmond, and this could destroy existing rent protections that are keeping senior citizens and persons with disabilities in their homes. The law would apply to Marymore downtown and Overlake Village residential targeted areas. The definition of these areas is unclear and means that two apartment buildings across the street from each other could operate under different rules. The exemption period would be a very long time, 12 years. The number of units of affordability levels in the county are defined as in this bill. First 10% of apartments, 80% AMI, median income. Second 10%, 115 AMI. To understand this, consider the King County income and rent guidelines for 2022, which I sent via email. At 80% of the median income, King County defines the rent of $17.87 per month as affordable for a one-bedroom apartment. 80% would be $66,750 per year. It is a misuse of the 30% of income adage for low-income persons to say that a person earning at that level, even with no children, should be paying $17.87 per month for an apartment. For senior citizens, this rent level is already way out of whack. But assuming King County numbers for now, for 115% of the median income level, which this ordinance proposes, the rent would be $25.68. This ordinance is telling us that if a new building of one-bedroom apartments offers 10% of the apartments at $22.33 per month and another 10% at $25.68 per month, they don't have to pay property taxes for 12 years. Meanwhile, like, I'm paying about a tenth of my income as the landlord's property taxes. Okay, so if there are 50 apartments, there would be 5 apartments in each category, and the development would be property tax-free for 12 years. This circumvents the affordability levels for Section 8, shuts out Section 8 renters, creating backdoor source of income discrimination, which both the city and the state made illegal. Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, Miss Clerk, Madam Clerk. Can we ask if we can get a copy of that by email? We haven't? Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Shai G'day. I'm a resident who lives north of the gate on 172nd. My wife and I have been living there since 1998. I'm looking at the process that was followed, and what I see is a significant breakdown of trust between the residents, not just north of the gate, but throughout the community and the city of Redmond. And that, as you've heard, starts with a commitment that was made by the city to put mitigations in place prior to any opening of the gate that we heard firsthand from city officials, which is now being reneged upon. And it continued with the late notification to the residents, which, as you heard, not all the affected residents even bothered to receive through no lack of interest on their own part. When coupled with the meeting notice that was sent out today, which notified us of a virtual meeting instead of an in-person meeting, that is adding insult to injury, so to speak. And number one, I would call upon the city to ensure that that meeting is held within the community, either in city council chambers or at Clara Barton, and allowing for interaction with the community members and not through a virtual setting through a Teams call or a Zoom call. Our current sense, at least mine, I'll speak for myself, is that that Wednesday meeting is a pro forma meeting. I fully expect to see the city out there on Thursday morning, having gone through the motions and not internalized any feedback that you've heard here tonight or that you will hear in greater detail at that meeting on Wednesday. And that is very concerning to me for a local government. I think there's an opportunity here, and I call upon the mayor and the city council to take steps to rebuild the trust
both with Redmond residents and with the residents north of the gate who are adjacent to the city, and establish a due process which will allow all the concerns to be heard and resolved, and put mitigations in place before embarking on a course of action that will cause irreparable harm and potential injury to children and members of the community. Thank you very much.
Up now is David Morton, and following David is Arthur Weiner.
Good evening, esteemed council members and honorable mayor. I'm David Morton. On a different subject, promoting economic development while addressing climate change is essential and challenging for cities. Cities can pursue both goals simultaneously by adopting sustainable and innovative approaches. Here are 10 strategies cities can employ. First, embrace renewable energy. Transitioning to renewable energy sources like solar, wind, and hydroelectric power can create new job opportunities and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Investing in renewable energy infrastructure and incentives to adopt clean energy can spur economic growth. Second, foster green industries and innovation. The development and growth of green industries like renewable energy technology, energy-efficient building and materials, and electric vehicles creates new jobs and attracts sustainable businesses. Financial incentives, research grants, and incubator programs help them to innovate. Third, promote energy efficiency and conservation. Implementing energy efficiency measures in buildings, transportation, and industrial processes leads to cost savings, reduced emissions, and job creation. Programs offering incentives for energy-efficient retrofits, energy audits, and sustainable practices drive economic growth and address climate change. Fourth, invest in sustainable infrastructure. Sustainable infrastructure like public transit, bike lanes, and pedestrian-friendly infrastructure reduces greenhouse gas emissions and enhances connectivity, accessibility, and quality of life. It stimulates economic activity through construction projects, job creation, and increased mobility options. Fifth, support green building practices. The adoption of green building standards like LEED certification creates demand for sustainable building materials, technologies, and services. It creates jobs in construction, design, and maintenance, while reducing the environmental impact of the built environment. Sixth, enhance waste management and recycling. Recycling and composting programs can reduce landfill waste, promote the development of recycling industries, and create jobs in waste collection, sorting facilities, and recycling operations. Seventh, foster sustainable tourism. Ecotourism and sustainable practices in the tourism industry can attract visitors while minimizing environmental impact. Supporting local businesses, artisans, and cultural activities can boost the local economy and preserve the city's unique character. Eighth, encourage green job training and education. Green job training programs and educational initiatives can equip the local workforce with the skills and preparation needed for the emerging green economy. Ninth, collaborate with stakeholders. Engaging stakeholders, including businesses, community organizations, and citizens in the decision-making process is crucial. It taps into local expertise and resources, encouraging sustainable development and economic growth. And finally, develop long-term sustainability plans, comprehensive plans that integrate climate change mitigation and adaptation measures with economic development strategies are vital. By pursuing strategies that balance environmental responsibility with economic prosperity and social well-being, a city can achieve economic development while addressing climate change. Thank you.
Now we have Arthur Weiner. Following Arthur is Michelle Drovedal and Mary Comstock.
Hello, y'all. My name's Arthur Wiener. I don't have any prepared comments this evening. I'm here to support my neighbors speaking out in opposition of the opening of the gate at 172nd Avenue. I have the flyer that's been referenced a couple of times, and so I think I'll piggyback off of the first speaker tonight in that there is a whole lot of misleading information here. Expedite Emergency Services, they're the only people who use the road right now. How would adding traffic expedite the only people who can get through? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Secondly, it says reduce traffic speeds. Really? Honestly? You're going to reduce traffic speeds by adding all these cars to this road that can barely fit cars to begin with? Maybe it'll reduce traffic speeds by adding a whole bunch of traffic, but I don't quite think that's the intent. Discourage cut-through traffic, and frankly, this is mind-numbingly insane to print on a piece of paper. The whole reason you're opening this gate is to increase cut-through traffic. I honestly am beside myself and would expect better from our elected officials. And I suppose some unelected officials, frankly. Improve connectivity for residents. I don't think there are any residents asking for this connectivity. No. So perhaps we need to rethink the information that we're putting out there, because it's all a bunch of lies. I don't know about the due process. I'm newer in the neighborhood. I don't have the history. But you can see from this picture, and I took a photo while they're doing the work, you cannot get two trucks down here. And the speaker before me mentioned bike lanes. Where is the bike lane going to go here? I'm a little puzzled by that. So anyhow, I encourage you to rethink your position, work with the community, establish trust. This is a chance to lead rather than follow. And I look forward to the next step. Thank you.
If the gentleman would pass the postcard around, I know a lot of us have not seen it, so I would love to see that. Thank you.
Councilmember, we can have our staff send you the copy of the card via email.
Is that on record that you haven't seen it? I haven't seen it. You didn't get it. I'm in the council. The council hasn't seen it. Yeah. So that's public record, right? That's crazy.
That is correct. I have not seen it. That's why I asked. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Drovedal with the King County Library right across the parking lot, and this is Mary Comstock, and we're here to tell you all about what's happening at the Redmond Library. We're very proud of our work, and we love being right in this area. And I have a nice statistic. Our circulation from January through May was 748,659, which is 100,000 more than the last time. We are really checking out books, e-books, and we have so many programs to talk about that I will hand this over to Mary.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to the City Council and the staff of the city for all their support for the library programs that are happening. I have to say that I saw at least one member of the audience holding some library books tonight, so good on you over there. So on June 1st, we started our annual summer reading program, and because the mayor declared Redmond a space district, we decided to call it Rocket into Reading. So we hope that you are all going to rocket into reading this summer. We have a rocket. Okay, it's small, I get it. In the library, please come over and have your selfie taken or your picture taken in the rocket while you're doing your reading. So the goal is to read 20 minutes a day. Get to 500 minutes, come on over, we'll give you a prize. Reading is a prize in and of itself. 1,000 minutes, you are a finisher. And we are looking for reading recommendations from our wonderful council members. I believe a staff member, Jason Brown, is collecting those, and we will publish the recommendations from council. We have published already on kcls.org your Redmond Library staff reading recommendations, so we encourage you to take a look at those. We've also come back, first time in 3 years, we've brought our Talk Time program back. That's conversational English learning. It is every Thursday each Thursday from 10:15 to 11:45. So we encourage all English language learners to come on over. We start our story time again at Farrell McWhirter Park. Thank you, City, for the partnership to do that. I see you over there. At Farrell McWhirter, that is every Thursday morning. It's a family story time. And then we'll be having story time in the library every Friday morning. These are family story times, any age welcome. During the summer, kids, Study Zone will continue. I know you're excited. Tuesdays and Wednesdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Let's keep you learning during the summer. And we're bringing a geocache into your Redmond library. So there's going to be clues. Check geocache.com to find that out. That should be in there in the next week or so. And then, of course, the Redmond Library is the home of the Nonprofit and Philanthropy Resource Center. So if you're part of a nonprofit, or if you're looking at starting a nonprofit, come on over. We have specialized resources for that. And we've been partnering with Human Services in the city, as well as Arts and Culture, to bring our nonprofit providers together to network with each other and learn about some of the resources. So we're very excited to be your Redmond library, and this is just a little taste of what we have for you. So it's all about information, which could be what you're going to read tonight or where you're going to sleep tonight. So please come over and take advantage of your library. Thank you, City of Redmond.
Up now is Bob Yoder. Following Bob is Steve Harris.
Hello, Council and Mayor. I'm Bob Yoder, Education Hill, and I write the Redmond Neighborhood blog, and I've lived here for 42 years. I'm mainly here in response to the Evergreen Health presentation that Board Member McLaughlin gave 2 weeks ago. It was great to see him come out and talk. It's rare that the commissioners do come out to the public and talk. I really appreciate his presentation. He's a quality guy. He was the chair of the commission previous to Virgil, and he's an official right now as a secretary. He asked for your help, Council, to better understand the needs and feelings of the voters, us. And it's a large district. It goes all the way up to Snohomish. And that's why I'm here, to give you some of my feelings and needs, and in person rather than in writing. So I wanted to let you know, for years I've commented on Evergreen Health's public meetings to encourage them to treat mental health disease with outpatient urgent care clinic. I also worked with the City Council 4 years ago, and Steve Fields was involved in promoting their bond measure, which supposedly they were going to be pushing for this urgent care clinic, which it turns out they didn't. But I just wanted to add a little bit more to what Board Member McLaughlin had to say, since I do have some experience with them. Candace Scarpin is the board governance coordinator, and she is the spokesperson for the board. It's a direct line to them only, to her only. She gave some useful information in May about their planned 2024 UTGO bond measure. Quote, our growth plan is focused on improving patient access to health care. We propose to build a new multi-story building to alleviate the current hospital bed shortage, which is predicted to increase as our local population continues to grow. Behavioral health services are a big need in our community, so we are looking at how best to provide care, possibly via an inpatient unit in the new building that's on campus. And so I just let you know, yay, go for it. Please support this. And well, let me try to switch my page. Candace went on to say, quote, "We are still modeling how that would work, who we might partner with and specific population." I don't know how long they're going to be modeling, but they have like 9 months before the bond comes out. So hopefully you can encourage them to move on with the modeling and come up with decisions on this. And Candace also said, "Meanwhile, we are encouraging the Connections Health Solutions," that's the critical care unit for behavioral health, the organization for building a new behavioral health crisis facility in Kirkland. They're going to be doing that, apparently. It's a 32-bed behavioral health crisis center that will be operational next year. Terrific. Councilmember Carson, you value the addiction recovery dual diagnosis segment of mental health care, as we all do, and there's going to be $1.5 million that is going to be funding the Connections Crisis Center, so the scope of the care will go far beyond the northeast section of District 2 in Monroe. Is my time up?
Yes, it is.
Huh? Okay.
Yes.
I'll send you the rest in mail, so, okay.
Up now is Steve Harris. Following Steve is Tanvir.
Sorry, some back pains. Thank you for letting us speak. I'm here to represent the gate of 172nd. I have lived in this neighborhood since 2011, moved into it for many of the same reasons my neighbors here did, as a beautiful neighborhood that we see so many families walking and enjoying our street, young children on bikes, dog walking, runners, skateboarders, electric bicyclists, etc., really utilize our street extensively because it is a calm street that does not go through, that does not have heavy traffic, and is really accessible to that type of community. My driveway happens to let out directly onto 172nd. My daughter, who is here with me today, has special needs and uses a walker to get around. And so over time, when we first moved in, we learned about some of the measures that had been discussed back in 2007 when the original opening of the road was being discussed. We saw extensive planning that had happened from that around traffic calming and traffic circles and lights and signs and all kinds of things that were discussed to be implemented. And we really feel let down, like trust has really been lost here. Due process has not been followed by simply receiving a postcard in the mail to say, "We're sorry, we're going to open the street next week. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much." Right? We would like to see us have a broader discussion on this subject. We think the community needs to be involved. We don't want to do this virtually. We think this is a critically important process to have this discussion with our neighborhood, with this community on all sides of this road to really understand the impacts of this. It is not as simple as just opening a gate and that being the end of it. We object to opening the gate. We feel that this could cause harm to our neighborhood, perhaps irreparable harm, and we would like to have this further discussion. Furthermore, I think the meeting is planned to be virtually next week. As mentioned previously, we really believe that this should be an in-person community town hall for all of us to speak at a location that's suitable. Thank you very much.
Up next, it looks like it's Tanvir. I can't read the last name, I'm sorry. And following is Steve Yoon.
Good evening, everyone.
First of all, I want to thank the City of Redmond for extending the time for sign-up sheet for sharing my concerns, because when I was driving, I knew that I cannot make it at 6:30 over here. So when I came here, I saw the sheet outside, I get very excited that at least I will get a chance to speak. Otherwise, I was planning just to come and show up over here, and with my presence, just to express that how important this matter is to us. I know my neighbors, like they covered almost all the points on safety concern. And I remember a while back ago, like next to that gate, the city put 2 rocks and a concrete barrier over there, and that was to prevent the speeding, because still people, they cross that barrier like from the sides. And I remember a very bad accident happened over there, and now whenever like I see animals, like dead animals on the road, my other concern comes up, okay, today it's an animal, tomorrow it could be one of us. And I know as a parent, like most of us who have middle schoolers or high schoolers, our kids come home before us. At least I know that, okay, when they are walking through that road, like it's only our neighborhood traffic. And yes, as a neighbors, we do care about each other. But when we have the whole city coming over there and going across over there back and forth, then for me, even if I'm at home or at work, yes, it is a concern for me. So if we take like proper precautions, like sidewalks or signal or a roundabout or anything, or instead of just opening that road and just put us on test to see, okay, how it will turn out, only that is my concern. If you do it like properly and with precautions and getting everyone's view on it. Thank you so much.
Up now is Steve Yoon, and following would be Roman, if Roman is in the audience.
Roman has not returned yet.
Okay, is Steve Yoon in the audience?
What'd she say?
Doesn't look like it, so Mayor, that is the list of people signed up to speak.
I'm just going to speak in placement of whoever's supposed to be speaking right now. So my name is Shafin. I've lived in this community, like around the gate. I lived there right after I was born, and I've lived north of the gate for like the last 12 years. I'm turning like 19 next week. And yeah, I'm also really concerned about this gate opening. I went to Redmond High School. I know that the speeding around the neighborhoods is out of control. I went in the morning at 6:30. Every day to get to school. I saw people crossing the street while it was pitch black outside. And I saw so many people almost get hit at the roundabout on 116th before and after school. As mentioned by someone before me, there isn't going to be a shortage of reckless drivers. We had people going around the gate and on the grass, even though there is a fire gate there. Someone's already mentioned about the wildlife in the area. We've already, developed houses in all these places they used to live in, and now we're destroying, the only way that they can get across. Someone mentioned something about, Clare Barton's a really big community center. My family actually used to go on walks like every night. If you go to Clare Barton, at any time of the day, you'll see people practicing hockey and soccer and skateboard in the parking lot. On the way, you might see some wildlife. You might see people moving deers, toads, bobcats out of the road, and I don't think that's going to be possible if there are cars going by every 5 or 7 seconds. Another concern I have is we've seen the state of the road on, I think, 166th, right? If there's 5,000 cars going on our road every day, I'm just wondering if this is a county road, are you guys concerned about how we're going to upkeep the road, let alone the sidewalks, let alone, people getting injured? My brother was actually hit by a car while he was biking south of the gate, just one driveway down. And so I think everyone is really concerned about, their safety, and also, Redmond is a city that really recognizes the value in outdoors and recreation and, getting outside. And I think this is a measure that's going to decrease the way that families engage in that around our communities. So yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Items from the audience is now closed. Our next item of business is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. See, Councilmember Fields, you have your hand up?
Well, two things. I do have my hand up. I did have a. Is that me or somebody else?
Try now.
Hello.
Councilmember?
Yeah. I don't know what the echo is. I did have a point of information that I would like to ask the city attorney question, and then I do have a comment on, you haven't got to that point, but I have a comment on items 3 and 5 on the consent, but I would like to do the point of information first, prior to the consent agenda.
Please.
So I'd like to ask the city attorney, we heard a lot of very compelling testimony tonight on the gate on 172nd. I'm not clear on what council can do or cannot do. I would appreciate hearing from the city attorney if there is a motion that we can make to delay the opening of the gate until a public meeting, in-person public meeting is held.
Point of order. I appreciate what Councilmember Fields wants to do, but I believe there's a motion on the table at the moment. Is that?
There is. There's a motion and consent agenda on the
Perhaps
table.
we could just finish this particular motion and then Councilmember Fields could speak next.
I'm good with that. I had raised my hand, but the mayor had missed it, so.
Yeah, just for procedure.
Thank you. So we have the consent agenda on the table. I think Councilmember Anderson would like to pull item number 5.
That's correct.
Are there any other items to be pulled? Are there any other items to be pulled?
Again, Mayor, I'd like to speak to items 3 and 5, not necessarily pull them.
Okay. Can you speak after the consent, after we vote, or would you like to speak prior to?
Either one.
Because normally we would vote, and then if you wanted to speak to the item, you would speak after the vote.
Thank you.
Okay. This is a without council item number 5. This is a roll call vote starting with Council President Forsyth.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That passes 7-0. Councilmember Fields, would you like to speak to item number 3? At the correct number?
Yes, thank you. I'd speak to item 3. I'll forego speaking to 5 because it's the same topic. I did vote for the consent agenda, and I'm likely to vote for item 5 as well, because I know the importance of putting those contracts in place and getting the work done. I did ask during our study session for some better understanding of the kinds of financial controls or approval controls we do on these type of contracts. We approve these work orders, and the answers that I got from Director Burt did not satisfy my concern. They were a copy of a vendor agreement, and there were some old dated policies. We're talking roughly $4.5 million of potential spending, and I would ask the mayor at some point to evaluate the policies that are in place and see if there's some way that we can strengthen the approval process on the work orders that this $4.5 million worth of contracts represents. That's my comment.
Thank you. I see another hand up.
That would be me.
Thank you. Did you have a comment on this, on the consent agenda as well?
I do. Just following up on Councilmember Fields' comments about the potential for policy. That was a question that I raised in my email correspondence with Director Burt, and if council is interested in considering that path, or council leadership can follow up with the mayor on those older policies that are in place, that's absolutely something that we can look into and we should look into, and we will follow up.
Thank you. Okay, see something in chat, just making sure I catch everything. Gotcha. Okay, recusal. All right, thank you. Can we need a motion to move item number 5?
I would move item number 5.
Second?
There a second? It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Point of order.
Seeing none, this roll call. Oh, sorry. Yes, sir.
Just, I wanted to communicate out that Councilmember Anderson is recusing herself due to business conflict.
Yes, I see that. Thank you. This is a roll call vote starting with Council President Forsyth.
Aye.
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 And that passes 6-0. Thank you very much. Back to Councilmember Fields' request that would seem that it would be in new business if that we were going to bring that up, but I will defer to our city attorney.
I'm afraid I'm having some trouble accessing the city code at the moment, so it's difficult for me to answer whether the council has reserved that authority. I'd say generally that the authority over opening streets or closing streets lies with the city council, except as you've delegated that authority. But again, I'm having trouble accessing the code at the moment. My understanding from speaking to Mr. Burt is that he's out this week, and my understanding is that there was no action that I think is to take place actually opening this gate until mid to late July. So I believe there is time for the council to make a decision, but I'm afraid I can't answer your question definitively at the moment.
So the city attorney, I'm sorry, thank you. Your speculation on whether we have time would be more assuring if we knew we had time. In other words, if a second business meeting would happen and we would be clear on what council authority is to evaluate further on the gate, then that would satisfy my concern tonight. If there's no action, or if we can be assured that there's no action, and that we would have another business meeting opportunity, and we would have clarification from the city attorney, that would be a much better feeling for me. Is there anything that we can say or do tonight about that?
I can answer that question for you. Yeah, I can answer that question for you, council member. There has been no action. There has been public works activity in that area, but they're working on a stormwater situation, not on the gate. I talked with Director Burt prior to him being out of town, and there is going to be no action on the gate until mid-July. And King County is hosting the public meeting next week. And so it's under their discretion on how they want to hold that meeting. But there will be no action before the next business meeting.
Perfect. So if we can get a response from the city attorney in time for our next business meeting in 2 weeks?
Well, I will definitely provide a response by then.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, council member. I also see, Councilmember Kritzer.
No.
Thank you. I just wanted to weigh in on this topic as well, just to say that I do think given the amount of interest and concern from the community, that it would make sense for us to be able to, as council leadership, potentially look at putting this onto a kind of formal moment for discussion by the city council so that we could learn more about the project, be able to hear from city staff about it, potentially from the county as well, and be able to look at the concerns that have been raised by our community tonight. And I'm happy to work with Council President Forsyth on that. I have raised this issue with the mayor and the council president as we've started to get emails on this, but definitely would be happy to schedule that if a majority of council is interested in putting that on an upcoming agenda.
Council President Forsyth?
I think Council Vice President Kritzer said it all well. I will look forward to working with the mayor and the Council Vice President about getting this sussed out before the next business meeting so we can figure out what our role in this and our responsibility in this is. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Carson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So my suggestion is just that we potentially have, if we have time at our next study session, to at least be a little bit more educated about this issue, because I think when the email started coming in, I think pretty much all of council just kind of blindsided by the entire issue. And I mean, if we're going to take some action at our next business meeting, I would be really nice to have full information on, and if Director Byrd is going to be back next week, maybe that's possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart?
Thank you. 2 items. Now that we have received the copy of the postcard, it does in fact say that work is beginning in late June. So I just want to confirm, as has been verbalized, but is different than the postcard the public received, that no work on the gate is scheduled until the middle of July. Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I know the information. I know the information on the postcard, and that is incorrect. I have talked with Director Byrd prior to his leave going on vacation, and we clarified when the gate work will actually start.
Great. I'm just looking for clarity for the public with us tonight. My second question, and I am the council ombuds for this month, so if this needs to be me, I'm happy to take that on. The public has asked for us to communicate with King County about the interest in having an in-person public meeting. I did not know until this meeting that there was a meeting scheduled for next week, but I believe that someone from the city should take on the task of communicating the request that we've received tonight. Should that be me, or is that someone from Public Works that would, or the mayor's office that would like to take that on?
It would be someone in Public Works that would do that. But that is the first information. I received the meeting notice just before this meeting that they were having it, and I did not know that there was an interest in having a in-person meeting.
Great. I will communicate with Deputy Director Marshall Doty then. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Vice President Kritzer.
Just one more note for the public out here. Hopefully we will be able to see if we can find time on next week's study session to be able to look at this, or an upcoming study session. And since I know there's confusion last week, at our study sessions we don't take public comment, but you can certainly come and sit in the audience and listen to us discuss and learn about the topic, and deliberate on that. We don't make any final decisions in study sessions. We typically talk about the decision we'll be making during the business meeting. So since not everyone comes to all of our council meetings, just thought that I would share a little bit about that process. And you can see all of our agendas that get posted on the Friday before each Tuesday's meeting on our website with all of the information that we'll be looking at.
Thank you. And our meetings can also be viewed online and on TV as well, if people don't want to come in. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for that discussion. Our next item of business is a staff report for the annual update of 2024 through 2029 6-year Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. Carol Helen, Director of Planning and Community Development, will introduce the item.
Mayor, I'm just going to wait 1 minute for the council chambers to clear.
I'll just say, since there was a question asked in chambers, the next business meeting will be on the 5th of July. That's a Wednesday, because the Tuesday is the 4th of July.
Director Helen, just so you know, I can, you're a very tiny image where the people are, but I can see your presentation. So it, just so you know.
All right, thank you. We're just waiting a minute to let the people exit the council chambers who are moving about, so. Well, that looks good. Okay, good evening, Mayor, online, and council members this evening. Tonight, we're going to be continuing our preparations for the city's adoption of the annual 6-year Transportation Improvement Program, which we call the TIP. The TIP is a state-mandated planning document that's updated annually to reflect project completions, revisions, and additions. A summary of those changes is actually included in your packet materials at attachment B. I'm joined this evening by Vanjie Garcia and Josh Mueller, who are going to be providing the presentation tonight and answering questions from the June 6th Committee of the Whole meeting. And we'll be doing that in preparation for the scheduled public hearing that is on July 5th. At that point in time, you can either take action or you can request additional information, and we can do that at a subsequent meeting, but that's the order of operations. So with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Vanjie.
Good evening. Sorry, I have no idea what that is. So, sorry. I actually don't know what that is, so I apologize. Good evening again, the mayor and the council. Josh and I are here tonight to provide a staff report on the city's annual update to the TIP. This is an annual update and a staff report. Back to you, what has changed since the last time we were here to talk about the TIP. Last year, if you remember, it was closer to the middle of in the midst of budget discussions, so last year, and so what Josh will be going over are the changes that has happened since the last time we were here. What is unique to Redmond is that we have the capital investment strategy, which is part of the capital budgeting process. The CIS attempts to look at all our capital needs in the longer term, and transportation funding revenue sources can be sometimes complex. The needs and opportunities can change drastically within a 6-year span. The TIP is a planning document that lists documented transportation needs. And this is the time to review on what transportation projects and programs were funded in last year's CIP, in the CIP investment program, the CIP, as part of the 2023-2024 budget. The TIP is a resource to use during the budget discussions. For example, Councilmember Carson, you asked about the Westlake Sam improvements between 51st and Bell Red last time. It was proposed for design in the outer years for 22 to 25, but that was for the 2019 to 20 budget. In the 21 to 22 budget, it was proposed for potential future investment in the 25-26 timeframe. So it is likely that the TIP documents for those years, it looks like the project has local funding. But for the budget in 2019 and 2020 and 21 and 22, it might not have actually had funding in 21, 22, and 21 and 22. From 2019 to 22. And in the 23 and 24, the project somehow was not listed in the budget. And so if you remember this very colorful chart that I had with me the last time, it was not on that list. So next slide, Josh. So when we do the annual update, the 6-year program highlights all near-term projects and programs that are of regional significance, which we send to PSRC and are included in the statewide transportation improvement program. Only those projects programmed in the STIP can utilize federal funds. The TIP also documents any new funds that enhances bicycle and/or pedestrian facilities and other relevant changes that promote non-motorized transportation options. One benefit to updating this document annually is funding sources can change from year to year, though the projects on this list may not. For example, we were asked the 148th Trail, where we were selected, the project was selected for the Move Ahead Washington funds. I believe Councilmember Forsythe, you guys asked that question. For the budget documents, the $8 million was identified for the outer years in our CIP. But at the end of the legislative session, we found out that we wouldn't receive this money until after 2029, which is outside our CIP budgeting window. So we didn't change this document for this TIP because we didn't know our budgeting documents isn't outside this right now. So a lot can happen between now and 2029. And so if we find out, we'll still advocate for receiving money to begin design because that's what we really need to do. So maybe in the next TIP, we'll have more news when we will receive this money.
All right. A little more on what the TIP is. Again, the TIP is that short-range, 6-year planning document that identifies projects and programs within the city over the next 6 years. The TIP is that tool for the mayor, the council, and staff to review the work that has been completed each year, as well as provide an update on current and future transportation funding needs. The TIP identifies projects which are or may become eligible for federal, state, or local funding sources. And again, the important purpose of the TIP is that local projects must be included on the city's adopted TIP list to be eligible for any state and federal funding grant programs. So why the early update this year? We just had the last update like 6 months ago with the budget process. And the reason for this is the hope to get the city to align with the adoption to report back to the statewide transportation improvement program, the STIP, which is due at the end of July 31st for cities. So this is a minor update this year because it's a non-budget year and largely is only reflected completed projects or projects that have acquired funds over the last 6 months. So small changes, and it's a good opportunity for us to align with our reporting requirements. And then also it reflects grant funding that we have coming available for 2024. So in the council packet is a list of projects that were added, modified, removed from this year's TIP. And the projects, again, align with the CIS and CIP and the current budget. The TIP process, again, is just a snapshot in time. It's a living document in a way. Transportation project development is a continuous activity throughout the year. There are many unpredictable sources of external funding from the federal and state grants awards or regional partnering and also private development. There is a list of 3 projects, the Northeast 40th Street Shared Use Path, which is coming to completion here, the Redmond Way and East Lake Sammamish Parkway intersection improvements, and the bridge deck overlay at Northeast 85th Street for completion. There's also a couple of other projects that may be completed this year that were not included on this list. And by the nature of construction projects, things can take longer than they need to be, and there's no risk of them remaining on this adopted TIP. Again, they can be removed in next year's update. So that's one thing I wanted to point out. I also want to note on this slide here, there was a minor change in the chart that was provided in the council packet. And so, and this was just for clarity. Nothing major has changed here, but just wanted to note that this chart is different than what's in the council packet. So to highlight some of the changes in this year's TIP, I wanted to highlight the increased grant funding that the RCC3 received, and also the adaptive signal for downtown, and then also the funding opportunities that we have moving forward in 2024. First, we'll just call it our critical transportation Infrastructure Improvement Program, and this is just a placeholder for the Transportation Benefit District funding that the council had recently adopted in an ordinance. And the funding will not be collected until 2024, and so it's just a placeholder here in the TIP. I'd also like to highlight the grant funding that we are currently working on out of the development of our local road safety plan. And that's that SS4A funding agreement that we're working on reaching that sub-agreement to the PSRC's federal grant application. And then also the potential for Highway Safety Improvement Plan grant funding from the state next year, and that will be applied for, again, out of the work done with the local road safety plan. So looking at the timeline and next steps for the annual TIP update, we'd like to post a public hearing notice starting on tomorrow, June 21st. This notice includes an announcement in the Seattle Times, in print and online. The draft of the TIP documents will be hosted on the city's TIP website page for review. The planning department is going to be reaching out to our jurisdictional neighbors, WSDOT, the PSRC, and various known interest stakeholder groups for announcement of the public hearing that would be held on July 5th. Staff recommends that the public hearing be held on July 5th, and at that time, as the director had mentioned, the council can take action on adopting the 2024-2029 Transportation Improvement Program. So with that, I'd like to ask if there's any questions or comments, and thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much. Council President Forsythe.
Thank you. Can you, Ms. Garcia, I missed what you had said about the 148th part. Is it included in the TIP, or is it not included? Because you said 29, this goes to 29.
Right, so it is on the TIP because that allows us to seek funding, but you received a presentation on March 23rd May 23rd, I'm sorry, from Brianna Murray, our lobbyist, and the 148th bicycle and pedestrian funding was appropriated, but the $8 million allocation was to future biennia. So it's not reflected in the CIP.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for the
because
clarification.
it's outside the 6 years.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the clarification. I just missed a few words that you had said, so appreciate that. I am seeing on here a lot of the hot topic of the evening. The 172nd gate is actually slated on here for 24-26. Is that the traffic calming? Is there anything you can speak to about that item on this?
We just reflect what it says in the budget documents and the CIP.
Okay, so we're starting to see work happening now in 23, but the documentation and the CIP says it's not slated until next year. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a bit of a disconnect there, yes?
Yes.
Okay. I guess we will look forward to talking about that more in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Council Vice President Kritzer.
To follow up on that, I had also noted that project was on there in the timing. I am thinking just in terms of this item in conjunction with potential discussion we have around this project that before this we look at any approval around the TIP, we should make sure we know what we want to do with that project. Recognizing that the reason it's in your TIP is because we put it in the CIP. I think this project plus another one that I wanted to raise, I think are both ones that, while we did put them in the CIP, I think hearing from the community and just thinking about them more deeply may warrant some more discussion before we now take another step to formalize it with the TIP.
I was just
do you
going
have
to
a
mention
comment?
that actually 172nd, we would have to do some research about how long it has been in the TIP, but the council has been discussing the reopening of the 172nd Street gate for at least as long as I have been at City Hall, and it predated me. So it was part of and parcel of the North-South Corridor study, and the gate reopening was a component of some of the work that was done. There is actually a website page on our city site that you can go to. Just type North-South Corridor study. There's a lot of information on there about how long that project's been on the books, kind of the completion of that project and moving forward. So the TIP just reflects the work that has been ongoing on the opening of that gate that started many years ago.
I completely understand that. I'm not saying that the work hasn't been happening. In fact, I remember my first year on council when we looked at the North-South Corridor study. I saw that gate on there because I had heard about it from the community then. So I would say, I'm not saying that it hasn't been on there for a while, but just that this project, as well as another one I would want to raise in just a moment, I think are ones where there's been recent discussion about it, and if we're going to approve this TIP and it has projects listed, we may want to look at that again before we actually do the approval. So the other one that I wanted to raise was the 95th Street Bridge Replacement Project. I know that we have an upcoming study session on that project. Just curious, because I know that the scope is now potentially changed for that project. Is what is in here the original idea, which was to replace the car-focused bridge or multimodal bridge versus the proposed new ideas that we heard about from Director Burton?
We will double check, because I know that it should reflect that we have little descriptions for that project in the bigger attachments. So we will double check that it will be on the next one, but it should reflect the new updated.
And we will verify and report back at the beginning of the public hearing.
Okay, great. And I would just say for the record, I think on both of these items, until we have time to kind of discuss them, if they're still on the TIP, I won't be quite ready to vote on it until we are able to do our deeper dive on these ones.
Thank you. Staff, I don't remember exactly all the dates on your calendar. Do we have a study session on the TIP, or is it going straight to public hearing?
No, this is the staff report tonight. There's a public hearing that's scheduled for the 5th. At that point in time, the council can decide whether to move forward with approval on that night or at a future business meeting, or could request a study session before moving forward on the final vote.
Okay, thank you. Council Vice President, did you have another question, or is your hand just still up?
That's me. My hand is still up. I'll take it down.
Thank you. Councilmember Fields.
Thank you, Mayor. So my questions are about the characteristic and sort of the tactics of a TIP. And I think I'm going to restate what I think I heard. It's a living document, and whatever is not on the TIP, we would be excluded from seeking grant funding, correct? And then the two additional characteristics that I want to be clear is, especially based on the conversation recently, or a few seconds ago with Council President Forsyth and Council Vice President Kritzer on items that are in the TIP and what we're going to do with them. So because something is in the TIP, and I mentioned this last week, how complex your job was with a changing city and a changing technology and changing environment. So this is a snapshot in time, as you put it. But because it's on there doesn't mean that next year when we discover more information or we discover something has made it not a priority, or something that's not a priority becomes a priority, that we're not restricted in any way, shape, or form from doing that. This is just sort of a guiding document, as you put it, that we all come together on, correct?
Yes. I think that's a great way to put it, Councilmember Fields. And let's hypothetically say projects you don't want to move forward for one reason or another on projects A, B, or C, that you could approve this list today and make decisions 2 weeks from now. The next TIP would reflect the changes that you make in the next months or so.
Got
And
it.
that's what the use of the TIP.
Right.
we want.
And I appreciate that. And I think it's important that we structure, but it's also important that we maintain some flexibility. I know that Director Helen mentioned that we've been looking at the 172nd Street gate. I'll be honest with you, we probably did in my tenure on council, but I did not realize the significance of it until in the past few days. So I appreciate that flexibility that you've described. Thank you.
Mayor, may I make a
I'll see any more.
scheduling,
Sorry?
may I make a scheduling comment?
Sure. Thank you, Karen.
I just, the extended calendar has the Northeast 95th Street Bridge Replacement Project study session scheduled for July 11th. So that would provide the council the option on July 5th to have your public hearing on this topic. If you want to wait until after that, you have the study session on that topic. We can also confirm the scope of the project is accurately reflected in the TIP before your public hearing next week after next. And also with respect to 172nd. And with that information, you can decide then whether you want to take action on the 5th or whether you'd like to delay that action until sometime after July 11th. And we can accommodate that whichever way.
Thank you, Director. Councilmember Kritzer.
Just, can you remind us on the scheduling around this? Is there a deadline by which we need to approve the TIP?
Well, we are here early because it tended to be approved after the July 31st by RCW is when it needed to be approved. So we're just trying to be a little earlier this year.
Great, thank you very much. And to be clear on the 95th Street, I actually would be more interested if we kept it in its original scope. I think part of the discussion on July 11th is going to be about whether or not we would want to see the scope changed. So anyway, just my 2 cents on that one.
Council President Forsyth, you had your hand up. You're satisfied?
I was just going to suggest that council leadership could work on the scheduling on that with the mayor's office.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you for this conversation and the suggestions from my colleagues. I guess I want to be clear. If we take the example of the 95th Bridge, we're planning to have more conversation with Director Burt on the change of scope that's happened there. But a bridge will be replaced kind of no matter what. Is that the level of detail that the TIP needs, or does the TIP need the more exact scope of each of the projects?
The most important thing for the bridge is not actually the scope, it's where the money is coming from, because I know we have grants for the bridge. So that's the most important part for the TIP that needs to be in the TIP.
Yeah, so recognizing the challenge that we have a vertical team through time. Some on council have heard about the 95th Bridge for a long time, or the 177 gate for a really long time, and others of us less so. But definitely, we just approved this 6 months ago, and we know that these have been on there for a while. But to have a chance, particularly with the 95th Bridge, to have that conversation with Director Burt, I definitely agree with my colleagues that we do need that, and recognize that you might need this by the end of July. And so we may need a point to to give you the bare minimum of what you need for this to be on the TIP, and I could just see us being creative with that should it come to it. Just a thought. Thanks.
Thank you. Council leadership and I will kind of discuss a path forward or possibilities forward in our next meeting. So thank you for that discussion. Thank you, Director Helen and your team. Next item of business is Ombuds report for, we have month of June is Councilmember Stewart and month of May is Councilmember Fields, and I'll have Councilmember Fields wrap anything up if he needs to, and then I'll switch to Councilmember Stewart.
I think I wrapped it up last time, so I'm good for May.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to turn over to Councilmember Stewart, and I'm also going to switch where I'm getting Wi-Fi from because you guys are a little choppy. So I'm here. I'll be right back, but I'll turn it over to Councilmember Stewart.
Okay, thank you. Moving on from the topic of the 172nd gate, because I think we have good next steps on that. Last Friday afternoon, there was a referral for our homeless outreach coordinator that council received. I want to thank Councilmember Carson for his quick response. Just seeing it and knowing that it was timely and making sure that it made its way to Tisa Rutherford, I really do appreciate that. She was able to go ahead and make contact with that individual on Friday afternoon. This resident absolutely did the right thing by making the referral to our outreach services. Just a reminder, the city does have a program whereby we encourage folks to make referrals to our outreach services rather than provide cash in those kinds of scenarios. And you can learn more at redmond.gov/homelessness. I got a question from, or the council got a question from a resident about a pathway that is currently blocked due to the construction of the Together Center. Unfortunately, that pathway does need to remain closed for the duration of the project, and there is another project on the west side of the path that will begin soon after the Together Center is finished. So this is going to be a more lengthy closure, and just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that. Staff are going to do some refreshed signage out there. It may have already happened in the last couple of days. I had a resident come to my office hours with follow-up about some of the public safety items that council funded in the budget. I spoke with COO Files and confirmed that we'll be hearing from staff on behavioral health interventions at the July Public Safety and Human Services Committee of the Whole. A question about a maintenance schedule on a city-owned utility strip was sent in, and I'm working with Public Works staff to help understand what's happening at that property. It turns out that that the city may in fact not own that property, but we're working to be absolutely sure before we communicate more directly back to that resident. We have received a couple of pieces of feedback from residents on the 12-year multifamily tax exemption pilot and the discussion that council had last week on the topic. We also received feedback from a couple residents on the talk time item from last week, particularly weighing in on whether council should or should not reevaluate its rules to address misinformation and or hate speech during our items of the audience portion of the business meetings. I had a couple from Education Hill visit my office hours seeking support for their case with PSE. Turns out this was like just a super granular one-off case, and Matt Larson was able to help me route them to where they needed. So it looks like they're going to be wrapping up their ADU very soon. We received some EV questions about a resident and primarily just wanting to know what the latest updates were in terms of the city's relationship to EVs and state law and things like that. So I was able to answer that with the support of Jason Brown and Jenny Liebeck. And we received, I received support via email for alternatives to the sales tax increase that council will be discussing later this afternoon. And that's it so far. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Carson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had a couple of emails that were directed to me directly, and one was a question about what terms It was from an avid viewer that watches us every Tuesday, I think. And the presenter was using acronyms or TLAs, three-letter acronyms, and unfortunately, we get used to a lot of jargon, but when folks watch our ongoing meeting, it's difficult if we don't at least the first time say what the acronym means. So I would remind presenters and council members alike that it's really helpful for that to happen. And then secondly, I had a direct contact about the gate. I think enough said there. And then lastly, I wanted to thank the resident who sent us email about the person that she thought might be in distress, and she happens to be in the audience right now. So thanks for doing that, and we try to get those to our outreach person as soon as possible so that they can see if they are amenable to services, or and in this case it seems that it may be we don't know exactly what it is, but I did pass on the concern that this could be human trafficking that is not readily been identified. So TISA is aware of that and works very well with the police department if she suspects that's the case. So thank you.
Thank you. Council President.
Thank you. I had a wide variety of conversations and emails with community members ranging from public safety to heat pumps to the salary commission to cost of living to taxes to climate change, and to a resident unfortunately leaving our community because they can no longer afford to live here.
Thank you. Council Vice President.
I engaged with a few residents around the 172nd Gate issue, and I also talked with 2 residents about ways that the city could be more supportive of our LGBTQIA plus community, and also around some concerns that one of them had around the city website and its accessibility for those who do not speak English as a first language. Anyway, passed along some of the suggestions from them to our staff, and we'll be following up on a couple of the other ideas with more of our city folks. So thanks to them for reaching out.
Thank you. Councilmember Fields.
Yeah, just want to mention we had received the invitation to help celebrate Chinese American History Month and the bill that was passed. I did attend, and there were 4 state senators at the event. It was a marvelous event. A lot of performances by children in our community. And I was given a few minutes to speak. I expressed my appreciation for Chinese American courage and the importance of history and the importance that history has on directing a better future. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great that you got to go to that. Thank you for sharing. I don't see any other ombuds items. Our next item is committee reports. Are there any committee reports this evening? Council President Forsyth.
Thank you. Real quick, the mayor and I actually were able to attend the East Trail walking tour in Bellevue and got to see the trail before it becomes a trail. So that was pretty cool. Really interesting walk, and excited to hear that they may keep some of the graffiti on the steel bridge. So look out for that in the coming years. And also attended the SCA Deputy Mayor's Council President meeting, where we had a lively conversation about hate speech and commissions and responsibilities and some of the stuff going on in the region on those topics. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I attended the Eastside Transportation Partnership. There were 2 agenda items this month. The first was an update on the Revive I-5 project. The next piece of that is the 8 miles between Yesler and Northgate. And of course, will have an impact on traffic on the northern half of 405 especially. But more exciting was a presentation on Metro Flex. I'm going to read this right from their website for just a second because it does help you capture it, I think, a little bit easier. But Metro Flex is the new on-demand transit service that provides rides within multiple King County neighborhoods. And just like calling rideshare, you can within 15 minutes be in a Metro Flex minivan and be off to your destination. This currently doesn't operate inside of Redmond, but it is a test pilot that launched on March 6th, and they are looking to learn as much as they can about this and then work on expanding toward the end of the year. Interestingly, Redmond's Overlake neighborhood is on the list of possible areas in order to expand that might be expanded to. And there was a really lively conversation, myself included, and actually, a neighborhood like Overlake is already going to have 2 light rail stations, a ton of bus connectivity and whatnot. But maybe a neighborhood like Education Hill, where we frequently hear folks are more worried about being able to come down and access the light rail, that maybe neighborhoods like that might be maybe an interesting use of this. And several of our neighboring cities on the east side had similar kinds of questions. So moving forward, we'll really be looking to have Metro help build this into all of the transit options that are available in the city and in the region, and really balancing, what do our most dense need and what about those ones that are like not quite rural but not quite dense, and making sure that equity is addressed for everyone. And I really did push Metro on, like, what do you mean by equity in this sense? And I believe that they are really trying to do their best. Currently, this is operating in Sammamish, Kent, Renton, Tukwila, and then further north, in Juanita. So looking forward to more on that in the future.
Great, thank you. Council Vice President Kritzer.
Thank you. I attended the Public Issues Committee of the Sound Cities Association. Topics included long-range transit planning resources, the Metro Fall service changes, and King County wastewater rates that are being planned, as well as discussing the KCRHA, the King County Regional Housing Authority 5-year plan. I would just say as one note on this, as we talked about some of the service changes, as I noted, I also brought this up during the Eastside Transportation Partnership. I also felt like it was important to raise some questions and concerns just around engagement with cities for planning going forward around those routes that they decided to suspend indefinitely. So, and to be able to understand more about the process for how those routes will come back. So I think that's something that we'll just continue to need to follow up on. And then I also attended the King Conservation District Advisory Committee meeting this morning. It was a great conversation, some exciting topics. I would say the biggest one is that they have been working for the past year on a draft strategic plan, and in particular have really been overhauling their entire strategic plan as an organization with a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens, working with a consultant and engaging both kind of internal and external to be able to do that. So they came out with the first draft of that and gave the advisory committee the opportunity to weigh in. We'll be continuing to kind of look at that in the next upcoming meetings. They also shared about the fact that in the upcoming year, they'll be bringing to the county a proposal for a new set of rates and charges for King Conservation District, and that's going to be something which they're hopefully before they bring it to the King County Council to decide, that they will be trying to get the support from cities. So one of the things they asked was how they could best engage with cities. So I'll be following up on that from Redmond's perspective, and in my role as the SCA caucus chair for King Conservation District Advisory Committee. And then I also wanted to note that I wasn't actually able to attend, but some of our city staff attended a workshop around the artificial light at night abatement issue for Sammamish, Lake Sammamish kokanee recovery, as well as just general being a salmon-friendly lake. There's an event that's going to be happening this Saturday, June 24th, from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. That is basically a workshop for shorefront residents to be able to learn about different tactics that you can take in terms of behavior to make your residents more salmon-friendly. And it's going to provide free technical assistance, education, as well as some information about restoration and things that you can do around your home to make it a little more salmon friendly. So hopefully we'll see residents attend that. Our staff were able to attend a kind of preview of that workshop, and they sent a lot of notes and seemed to think that it's going to be a very effective program, advancing some of the work that we've been doing collectively through RIA 8 and the Kokanee ILA to be able to address the issue of artificial light at night. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. And just one clarification, this is a common thing people do. It's King County Regional Homelessness Authority that did the 5-year plan, not the Housing Authority. And I know that because I sit on the governing committee. So just as clarification for our public, that's all right. It happens a lot. The acronyms really catch people, and they should have named it something different. Next, we have Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. I wanted to say thank you to the council for the uplifting Public Safety and Human Services Committee meeting earlier this afternoon with Jan Harrison, our DEI program advisor. We had an update from her, and we'll hopefully be hearing more frequently from her going forward, as well as one item on EV charging for the parking garage from Public Works. So thanks for that. Additionally, last week I attended the King County Board of Health meeting, and we got a landscape description and review of youth mental health in the area. So I will forward along the presentation to the council. A few things that were covered include school-based health centers, children's crisis outreach response system, the Youth Healing Project, mental health first aid, which I thought was really interesting, community prevention and well-being programs, and youth-led communications campaigns. So I'll send that along. It's a very detailed presentation with a lot of data as well. So hopefully that's of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other hands up for committee reports. Our next item is new business, AM number 23-086, adoption of an ordinance establishing an optional pilot program for the 12-year multifamily housing property tax exemption, or MFTE program. Ordinance number 3125, an ordinance of the City of Redmond, Washington, amending RMC 3.38 multifamily housing property tax exemption, relating to establishment of a pilot program for the 12-year exemption, providing for severability, and establishing an effective date. Carol Helen, Director of Planning and Community Development, will introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening again, council members. Tonight, we'll be continuing our conversation regarding adoption of an ordinance to establish that optional pilot program for the 12-year MFTE, as the mayor noted. Staff's recommended an optional 12-year MFTE program to test whether changing the requirements would increase program usage. We did hear last week at the Committee of the Whole meeting where we were added to the Facilities and Communication Finance and Communication Committee of the Whole, that there was concern over the 115% AMI level as a mechanism to accelerate moderate income housing supply. So I'm joined tonight by Jeff Churchill and Ian Lefcourt to continue the conversation where we ended last week and answer questions that you may have on the issues matrix. I also wanted to let you know in the intervening time since the last Committee of the Whole meeting that we have, again, consulted between us, housing providers, also our support and colleagues at a Regional Coalition for Housing, ARCH, and reviewed the materials that we received from our consultant on housing economics. And with that in mind, have would suggest actually a change to the amendment or the ordinance as we presented it to you, so that the first 10% in the 12-year program would remain 80% AMI, as is currently proposed. And then that second 10% would be 90% AMI. We already have units in the city of Redmond at the 50% AMI, 60, 80, and 90%. So it would add to a tranche of AMI percentages that we already have in the city, and it would essentially provide more housing at that 80% level and 90% level that is generally recognized to be kind of attainable middle housing range. So we have the amendment before you for consideration, are here to answer questions you may have. I can pull up the ordinance if you like to see where we would recommend the change in the ordinance itself, if that would be of use, but I'll turn the conversation over to the council at this time and the mayor.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item prior to making a motion? Councilmember Anderson.
And my microphone's not on. I did have a question regarding the items 1 and 2 on the response matrix. My question was related to the amount that's reported as the tax abatement level between $22,000 to $32,000 per unit. And I'm wondering what the average median unit is cost, so we can get a kind of a concept of what that amount is.
The range of that is around 250,000 to 420,000.
Okay, so basically 5 to 10%. Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Councilmember Kritzer.
I want to say thanks to the staff for going back, looking at this, and the reassessment of what would be the best option here. To be honest, I don't know if I'm ready to vote on this at this moment. I know that we were hoping, the staff brought this quite quickly, hoping to be able to be eligible for some funding, but I do think about that funding in comparison with the funding that we might forego in terms of the actual tax exemptions, and I'm not quite sure that I'm there yet, especially given new amendments and other things in order to make the decision tonight. So just wanted to share that. I'm not sure if other council members are there with me, but I also don't necessarily want to vote no on it. I just really wish that we had more time to study it personally.
Thank you. Councilmember Fields.
So we asked some questions last week where if those were answered and provided to me, I missed it. So I asked questions about what it actually costs to do a 12-year exemption, what it costs us in lost revenue, or what it costs in lost revenue and what our share of that is. I don't remember all of the questions we asked, but I knew that we had acknowledged it was a very rushed moment, and that the likelihood of you being able to answer those questions in a week, I don't think that we had high expectations, but they remain important questions for me.
So the program costs and total tax abated were included in the matrix in the packet materials. The issue was whether the cost of the program and the value of the abated taxes for the 8-year MFTE. So we did 8-year and 12-year estimates, and those are in attachment B of your materials.
Okay, and I missed that, and I apologize. To address what Council Vice President Kritzer just said, I'm not only not prepared, wait, let me rephrase that. I am prepared to vote. I'm prepared to vote no, because I don't think this is in the interest of the people who are trying to help, so.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I make one response to some of the public testimony that was received earlier, just so we have this in context with how MFTE program works now?
That'd be great. Thank you, Carol.
Sure. So the MFTE program, the multifamily tax exemption program, has been in effect since 2017. It actually does provide a deeper affordability at the 10% when people are offering the 10%, using the 10% for 8 years. And it changes the affordability either to 60% or 50%, depending on the location in the city. This would actually expand it 4 more years, but we would be guaranteed 80% AMI for the first 10%, 90% AMI for the second 10%. Because it's a pilot, it would only run through the end of 2024. So it would have a very narrow opportunity for us to test. And we would have the opportunity to learn from that experience whether developers would indeed take advantage of the program as it was crafted. So it would provide us some valuable information, whether it was used or whether it was not used, and the limited kind of scope of individuals who would likely take advantage of it, we believe is worth piloting a program to understand what the ramifications would be.
Thank you. Council President Forsyth.
Thank you. Couple of questions to follow up on that. Is there a length duration on the affordable units?
Yes, and that's actually been something that has been probably the biggest sticking point for the usage of the program in Redmond, and something that we haven't been willing to compromise on. Our units are required to be affordable at the level required in the MFTE program permanently for the life of the project. So in many cases, cities actually adopt these programs, and the affordability is only guaranteed during the pendency of the exemption. And ours actually, because of the inclusionary zoning for the first 10%, it's required to be for the life of the project. We're suggesting that this second tranche of affordability should also be permanent.
That is great news. So thank you for that. And then this does not necessarily have any changes to our current 8-year program. Is that correct as well?
That's correct.
Okay. I share the sentiments and the feelings of my fellow council members about how quick this is for us. I appreciate the additional information, and considering that it is only a 1-year period or your 18-month period. I'm still torn on my willingness to support it. I know that it's what, a $10,000 grant that we would be giving up at this point. But reading through this data, I'm still interested to hear from other council members where this conversation goes. But I'm leaning towards the no as well on this.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you for the conversation on this item so far. I have a clarification again on this. The information provided in the matrix, and these were responses to Mr. Fields' questions on tax abatement, I think were really important. My understanding, and just to repeat back what I heard Director Helen just say, was that the program for 8 years is getting us 50% AMI and 60% AMI. And then the 12-year program, which is currently, according to Deputy Director Allen, doesn't have any applicants. And we're trying to fix that with this program that addresses 80% to 90% AMI. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
We have had very good usage of the 8-year program. I think all but one of the projects that have been built since 2017 have applied, and we've had no projects avail themselves of the 12-year program.
Great. Okay, I think I appreciate that understanding. I wanted to make sure it wasn't backwards. So my question, given that we know that there's a need for lower levels of affordability, how can a 12-year MFT program and this proposal help us get to those lower levels of affordability, if at all?
So I will also obviously have Jeff and Ian chime in. What I would submit is that one of the big issues about affordability is actually production and supply. So supply at any level is going to help affordability. What we have found is that affordability really anywhere below 60%, when you get below 60%, is actually subsidized. And we aren't going to get that affordability as a result of this program, except in the 8-year program where we do get deeper affordability on a smaller number of units. So that's one tool. But we are actually looking to essentially implement a range of tools to address the need that we have at all levels that are being dictated by commerce and the state.
Okay, thank you. The follow-up question on this is, does it have to be 12 years or can it be any number of years for this grant?
No, the state programs are 8 years, 12 years, and 20 years.
Okay.
And we're not eligible for the 20-year program because our population is too high.
Perfect. Thank you.
I would just add to that, one of the findings from the work that we did with community attributes was that a big barrier to deeper levels of affordability for a 12-year program is that a 12-year program has to have 20% of the units be affordable. That's a requirement in the statute. And it's very difficult to get 20% of the units affordable at deeper levels of affordability. That's why it's targeted at the higher AMIs. And our question is, can it work at all? And that's something we could learn through a pilot program. And it's also information that the answer is no. That's information that we can take back to our representatives at the state to help them help us make a program that can accomplish our needs.
Great. Quick question on that. Can you do mixed levels that are not within 10% of each other? Could you do 50% and 90%, or could you do something like that? Or do we know, would this pilot program find that out?
You can establish affordability levels that are not within 10% of each other.
Okay.
You can.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I acknowledge, like many of my colleagues, that this process, conversation has been fast and responsive to an external, force, this grant from Commerce. But my position at the moment is I'm inclined to try. And there's a few different reasons. And the matrix that we received this week was absolutely clarifying and really it was very helpful. So I think what our staff have put forward is something that is innovative and worth trying, is likely worth trying. So a few things are on my mind. This temporary tax exemption and the cost, as it's put in the first question by Councilmember Fields, was not overwhelming to me. And for that, we get these permanently affordable homes, or at least in the program we're discussing, more modestly available or accessible. Affordable by the average person's definition it's difficult to swallow at that level. I do understand that. But MFTE doesn't, the multifamily tax exemption doesn't, it's not going to target the lowest levels of affordability. And so that's not the right yardstick in my mind to judge it by. And that's okay. And housing supply does matter in terms of driving down prices. But really at the heart and soul of it for me, MFT is the program that matters in our growth centers. So in our growth centers, we can't be focused just on the lowest levels of affordability and low-income housing. Our growth centers need all kinds of housing, just like the rest of the city. And I grow a little bit more concerned just in general about the idea that we know that the growth that's coming, we know that a lot of that growth is going to need to be deeply affordable, and that we're looking at our undeveloped centers and just assuming that, oh, it'll go there. And that's not fair to those neighborhoods either. They deserve to be more vibrant and more diverse too. So since, I'm on brand here with my overlay issue, I'm willing to try.
Thank you. Council Vice President Kritzer.
I appreciate those thoughts from Councilmember Stewart as well as from my fellow council members. I guess I wanted to elaborate a little bit on some of my thoughts on this. I think what I haven't felt I have clarity on in terms of the case is how it differs from the status quo of the 80% AMI at 10% that we have as part of our inclusionary zoning. In particular, I think, how many more units do we really think this will produce, given that we basically we would be giving a tax exemption for something that the developers are already required to do. So I think that's just where I'm at. I don't know if you have any more thoughts that you can share with us, to a certain extent answered in here, but whether there's actually any ballpark estimates you can really say, if we were just to have regular development happen with the inclusionary zoning, how many 80% units would we get? Because versus how many we would get with this, I guess the case has not yet been made to me on this.
I'll take the first part of that and then give Ian time to do the math on how many units we could create in a year and a half at 800 units per year, because that's been our current clip. So this would require developers to do something that they're not doing, and that is set aside 20% of the units as affordable. The first 10% would be at 80% AMI. The second 10% would be at 90 or a number the council chooses AMI. That's not required today, so that's what's different from the status quo, is it doubles the amount of units set aside that are cost controlled.
Yes, and I guess it is different if now we're at the 90% versus the original that was at 115%, which is the argument on that at least those cap the amount, the cost versus it just being market rate housing?
They are cost controlled for the life of the unit.
And one of the reasons why this is so valuable is that a lot of the apartment units in the city of Redmond come from an older building stock, and so they do have relatively more affordable market rate prices. When we looked at the modeling for what expected rents would be for new apartment complexes, they were north of $3,000 for either a large one-bedroom or a modest two-bedroom. So even getting something at 90% AMI, you're saving hundreds a month in rent for that controlled unit. So even though it may not have the depth, the question is really, okay, with the 8-year, we're getting more depth of affordability relative to our IZ or inclusionary zoning, and the 12-year is expanding it to the quantity of units that we're going to get relative to the inclusionary zoning. So tying that all back to your initial question of, well, what do we really expect to get from this? That's kind of the underlying question for this pilot program, because we've had 0 takers for the 12-year, and we can look at the modeling, various models, various stakeholder interviews to see preferences on how it might align. But until we get those regulations on the ground where it could actually be pushed forth into the development community, we won't actually know. So that's one of the reasons why we were so excited to try a pilot program.
Thank you.
Council President Forsythe.
Thank you. Following up on that last comment, in your view, what would not doing this look like?
The opportunity cost of not pursuing this pilot program would be forsaking the $10,000 reimbursement, but the real loss of value would be the knowledge. Because if we don't have a ballpark of what we could possibly get from the 12-year, it means we don't have knowledge of all the toolboxes or all the tools in our toolbox.
Can I add to that? I'm sorry. So when we the work with community attributes is wrapping up, and there's going to be a final report and a set of recommendations. And that will result in permanent changes to our inclusionary zoning and MFTE programs. What we would lose is knowledge, but also time. When we bring those forward, we would like to know if the 12-year program works. If we don't do the pilot, we can still put in place regulations for the 12-year program, but we would do that without knowing with real-world experience if they would be feasible. And then we could come back and change them later if we wanted to, but this would give us a jump start on that.
So is there anything standing in the way of us forsaking the $10,000, talking about this a bit more over the next 2 months, and then implementing our own 18-month program?
No, the council could adopt a pilot later. Okay. It would forego the grant money, but you could do a pilot anytime.
Okay. And then how many, if in your best guess, how many projects do you estimate would jump on this and that are currently in the queue? I know these projects take a long time to get up and running. Do you have any estimate of relationships with builders that you know might actually take advantage of this? How many projects are in the queue overall?
So a lot of the modeling we've done for this shows that the comparative kind of return, the actual incentive to a development for the 8-year at 50% AMI is about comparable to a 12-year that was doing an 80% AMI and 100% AMI. Now again, the sticky wicket comes down to the fact that there's also just kind of qualitative developer preferences. There are considerations of extra stewardship involved with affordable units, and there's also just kind of business preferences. So that's one of the reasons why it's hard to give a specific estimate.
Do you know about how many projects are currently slated for permitting in the next 18 months?
I do not know all of the ones that have gone through pre-app and started all that yet. I can pull that info for you.
That would be incredible information for us to have, I think. Thank you. And then also just trying to consider what this does to the market rate housing and how that would have impact the current market rate housing. Is this going to provide relief on that? Because I've seen some of the market rate housing is like 600 square feet for over $2,000, and that's just that blows my mind. So curious for some information and your take on that.
I kind of don't think so, unfortunately. I think that's related more to macro supply and demand issues, right? So we can address market rate pricing, market rate home prices mostly through supply. Demand is a little bit out of our hands. Right. Supply is what we can address that with. This would not change the overall supply of housing in Redmond. This would change how many of them are cost controlled.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate the information.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you for some of those detailed responses. We've got some big picture questions for you. Given that we need middle housing everywhere in the city, can you let me know if this program applies everywhere in the city, or is it limited to the development areas or the design districts?
It's limited geographically.
It is. Okay.
To the centers, basically, in Marymore Village.
Interesting. Okay. And then the program itself is expected to be due back in 18 months, just to confirm?
The program, as the ordinance is drafted, the ordinance would expire in 18 months unless it were, for instance, repealed by a permanent ordinance being put in place.
Okay. And what was the expected time for doing the study in general within that time frame?
Well, one of the study is going to be wrapping up in not too long that we're doing with community attributes, but we also know that we can't do we will be also having some changes to the inclusionary zoning requirements as well, but those have to be done contemporaneously with other upzones to make sure that we add value that ends up creating return on investment so that there can be potentially changes to our inclusionary zoning program as well.
Okay.
So the likelihood is we were going to do that kind of all at one time towards the end of next year.
Yeah, I think we kind of covered that a little bit with the committee meeting, and I just that tracks with what I recall. So thank you for that. And then my other question is there a minimum number of units to qualify for MFT?
I actually don't know the answer to that question.
I don't think so, but because of the developments that are occurring in the residential targeted areas that Director Helen mentioned, there's going to be many units, and especially because our inclusionary zoning does activate at 10 housing units or more.
Okay, 10. Great.
The land probably just isn't going to sustain a project. The land value isn't going to sustain a small scale project. So these are going to be mostly applicable to larger scale projects because we're looking at Overlake, downtown, and Marymore Village.
In my head, I've got some townhouse developments that I'm thinking about, like that's the size of the program. Okay, great, thank you. I guess the outcome that I would consider to be a success in this pilot program would be a firm nope for us, just to understand that this isn't currently going to be getting any traction in some way. I think I heard a legislative barrier in the way, and I think that would be very valuable information. So I would support looking into this further. Thank you.
Councilmember Fields.
So with the help of Council President Forsyth, I found the missing information from me. Took somebody from a younger generation to help me get there. I thought I was looking for an attachment, and it was not in the attachment. So I only have one question off of the comments, and I do appreciate, thank you for providing very detailed information. But I just want to clarify, when I see a number that says between $22,000 and $32,000 a year per unit of abated taxes. If I take the middle, that's $2,500 per unit of abated tax. Do I have that number correct?
I think closer to the 25,000 than 2,500, if I understand you correctly.
I just took the midpoint between 22 and 32, came to 27.5 divided by 12. Mm-hmm. That's $2,500 per month of abated taxes per unit. Is that do I have that math correct? Okay, that's a pretty big gift, in my opinion. So, thank you for that clarification.
I don't see any other questions. I have a feeling that, excuse me, Councilmember Stewart.
The more time we spent on this.
Okay.
Nope, I just hadn't started speaking yet.
Sorry.
The more time that we have been talking about this issue, the more it's become clear to me that if we try this, we have to be clear and okay with that this does one thing, not all the things. It does one thing to test one thing to provide at the end knowledge, including what Councilmember Anderson said, which could be yes, this closes off this alternative for the future, but it does one thing. It does not do all the things. So I'm actually pretty supportive of the item before us, and was also moved by the staff's enthusiasm in needing this information to move forward, and not wanting to be a barrier to them again, so that our centers can have the best shot at having vibrant, multifaceted communities. So I'm fully in on this at this point. I think I've just talked myself into it. Thanks.
Thank you. Council President Forsyth.
Do we know other cities that are considering this, other cities of our same budget size, of our same city size, our same growth size that are actually considering this program, this pilot program?
We haven't done an exhaustive search of cities that have done MFTE. We do, I know Bellevue does and has an MFTE program. All of the cities have basically had mixed results with MFTE, but and so have kind of tinkered with it to see if there are changes they can make that make the program more desirable because of the outcomes of creating supply and, at least in Redmond, creating the permanent affordability. So I think we're all kind of in the same test ground right now. So, and a lot of us are doing this as part of the comprehensive plan update and looking at the range of options that we have available and trying to implement as many as possible. Because to Councilmember Stewart's point, one thing is not going to solve the problem. It's almost as though we need to try everything to essentially create delivery on housing supply.
And this is a big ask, but do you know if any other cities have tried this?
This particularly?
Right.
I do not.
Don't know. Okay. Okay. I appreciate the enthusiasm of wanting to try it to see. I'm not at a place where I am willing to be that test ground just yet. I really appreciate the conversation. It's given me a lot more clarity. So if folks have more to discuss, I'm open to it. But I'm struggling with it.
Member Anderson.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the ordinance establishing an optional pilot program for the 12-year multifamily housing property tax exemption program, ordinance number 3125, and the rest to get the item on the floor.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
And I'm assuming that's with the upper limit AMI at 90%.
I was just reading off the agenda as it was, yeah. Do we need to also make an amendment?
I'd say you would just state in your motion that it is with the, as drafted, changing the 115 AMI to 90% AMI.
Done.
Just a moment. I just want to get clarity. In the packet of material, is it stated as 90% or 115%?
It's stated as 115, and we're recommending the change to 90%.
It's actually like an amendment to the packet information so that we have clarity for the public. Thank you.
So is that a Scrivener's error?
No. That's actual content. So if you would like to change it to the recommended staff number of 90%, then you need to amendment to the original motion.
I would amend the motion to have the levels at 80 and 90% of AMI.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion about the amendment? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote starting with Council President Forsyth.
No.
Aye on the amendment.
It's on the amendment.
Aye.
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 And if I got everyone, then that is 6-1 passing to amend the original motion. Thank you very much. So next we go back to the original motion as amended. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Kritzer.
I move to refer to committee, refer this item to committee. To the next Planning and Public Works Committee.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to refer this item to the next Planning and Public Works Committee. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Stewart.
I am just racing to pull up the memo again, but I want to make sure that the timing of that would work because this was grant funding that had a specific date.
So the timing won't work for the grant funding. We can bring it back. The urgency would be less And at that point in time, I would submit that it would be better to wrap it back into the work that we're doing with community attributes and not pursue this at the faster clip.
Thank you.
In which case, can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Of Director Helen? In which case, would you expect well, I'll come back. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson.
Must you have approval from the council in order to pursue the grant, and then we cannot accept it?
What we need from the council, and we have confirmed this at all staff levels and up to the director at Commerce as of today, that we have to have a passed ordinance in order to invoice them for the completion of that work. And the state's budget ends the end of this month. So we really would have to be able to demonstrate that we passed an ordinance tonight in order for us to be able to recover the last 10% of the grant.
Great. Ordinances can be changed. So, and the follow-up question is, do we have an alternate funding source for $10,000 to cover that cost?
Well, we would have to find the alternate source because we expended that money for the community attributes contract. So we would have to cover that from our planning and community development budget.
Great, thank you. I'm not in support of moving this to committee.
Thank you. Councilmember Fields?
So the amendment, I'm sorry, it's not an amendment. The motion
Sure.
On the floor is to refer this to committee. We were I'm trying to understand the process here. So we were in the middle of a main amendment discussion, and then we got a new motion to refer this to committee. When we do that, say it passes, what does that mean that the main motion then is not voted on? Is that how that works?
Yeah, then it has to go back to, goes to committee, and then from there you would refer it back to a business meeting for a vote. And so it's like it's live, but it's in a holding pattern until you can bring it back for a vote.
But is the motion, the main motion that Councilmember Anderson made, is that then disappears if we refer it to committee?
If you refer it to committee, the goal will be for it to come back to the business meeting for a vote.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Kritzer.
I just wanted to speak to the motion. I made this motion because although I would love for us to take advantage of the 10,000 in grant funds, I just think that we need a little bit more time to study this issue already. We've had some really good discussion about it, but I still have a few follow-up questions that I'd like answered and would prefer for us to be able to have a little bit of time. I note that if we don't do this, I'm hearing from our planning director that we might just roll it all in together. But even if we had a couple more weeks or a month to be able to kind of process this and suss out some of the details, at least from the council perspective, I think we could get to a better decision, even given that we had a change in what the ordinance was on the fly tonight. Not on the fly, very thoughtfully developed, but tonight. So I just think that this deserves taking a little bit more time, even if we have to forego a grant, and we can still, if we come up with that decision, decide to launch the pilot a month from now.
Any more discussion? So this is on the motion to refer this item to committee. Starting with Council President Forsyth.
No.
No.
Aye. No.
Aye.
No.
No.
That motion fails. So we're back to the main motion, the main amended motion for ordinance number 3125. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote starting with sorry, I see hands. Councilmember Carson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I haven't talked about this yet. I was kind of hung up on the 115% of AMI, and obviously other council members were as well. I do think we struggle to have housing built for certain segments, and I think this is very much one of them. Really incentives to build in Redmond, and these are not small scale projects. These are obviously, highly engineered, and unfortunately that means that often incentives are required to get, even if they own the property already, to look at Redmond as a viable investment option, because at the end of the day, a developer is only going to build something that they can also make a living out of, and that's what they do, is provide housing. So I have to support this. It makes all the sense to me that we would tweak the program to generate some interest, because obviously what we're doing now is not doing that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart.
Two very short things. Number one, it's a pilot. So if we hate it, our staff will hate it too, and it'll be over in 18 months. And number two, I really appreciated Council President Forsyth and sharing, where she's at on it, and the questions about the other cities and our neighbors and what they're doing. I have the pleasure of serving on 2 growth management regional committees on behalf of the city of Redmond, and in those spaces, everyone's looking to Redmond. And Redmond is a leader, not just on growth management issues generally, but also on a regional coalition for housing's board. And I believe that if we're going to learn something here, we're going to share it kindly with our neighbors, and eyes are kind of on us, on Redmond, because folks expect us to be trying to innovate and to get good work done. So again, just the more and more we talk about this issue tonight, the more and more I'm excited to see a vote on this. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Fields.
I will be voting no to Councilmember Carson's point about whether a project pencils out. Based on the numbers that I've seen, and again, I did not really get a chance to really look at those numbers, but they're not surprising to me. I think this is a tremendous advantage to the developers. They get the tax exemption, they get a high level of rent, and I think that we're doing a disservice to the people who are really clamoring for us as government to do something about affordability, not just calling it affordability, but actually providing circumstances where they can actually afford to live in Redmond. This does not get us there, and I will be voting no.
Thank you. Councilmember Carson.
Thank you. So I would just respond in terms of we've talked about deeper affordability. The problem with deeper affordability is that it means that other people are paying more for their units, because at the end of the day, again, someone who is a developer that is renting rental units, they need a certain return for their investors, for the money they borrowed to build the project potentially. And so what we're doing, if we're going from deeper affordability, it means that other people in that same unit, in that same complex, are going to be paying more than they otherwise would be. So this is why I like this band of 80 to 90%, because the developer is getting the benefit of the tax exemption, and basically that's going directly to those who are renting those units at below market prices. So, we're basically, the city is basically subsidizing is the wrong term, but we are incenting that. And if it doesn't get built, nobody benefits from it. So I think that's where I would leave it.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson.
I will be supporting this motion. In particular, I'd just like to remind the council that we're not trying to solve the entire issue of housing affordability right now. We are simply providing enabling legislation to discover and define an issue that we don't really understand very well and make sure that this program, if it's designed to work or if it's designed to fail, we have that answer at the end of a certain amount of time. So just encourage you to remind yourselves we're trying to shoot a target here, not a wide brush. So thank you.
Thank you. Council Vice President Kritzer.
Thanks to everyone for the discussion, the staff for the information. I think, although it would have been my preference for us to spend a bit more time studying this, given that we are going to take a decision on this, I believe that when I think about the opportunity as the staff presented it for us to get an additional 10% of units in buildings that can be at an affordable rate. When I think about, actually just last week, got to tour one of our newest buildings in town and saw what the market rate rents in there were. They're pretty high. That building actually did have 10% of units at 50% AMI, which was exciting. But I think about if 10% more of those units were actually, even at 90%, more affordable compared to what the average rents were in that building. I'd love to be able to see that. So I think, and given that this is a pilot, I do hope that we can have some updates throughout the pilot and be able to hear about what's going on so that if we need to make any adjustments, that we can do so. But I think I will vote in support. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Fields, do you want the last word? Nope.
Yes, I do. So doing the math, $2,750 per unit, I would hope that the city could find a better tool with the resource and the revenue that we don't get to actually directly support affordability and affordable lives. This feels to me like a big mistake for the city. I recognize that it's a pilot, but I do happen to agree with the testimony that we heard earlier that we are legislating a higher rate of rent in the city of Redmond by doing this, and I think it's the wrong direction.
Thank you. This goes back to the amended motion and number 3125. This is a roll call vote starting with Council President Forsythe.
No.
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 Aye.
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 Passes 4-3. Thank you very much for the discussion.
Thank you very much. And we will keep you posted, and you'll be hearing more about housing, a lot more about housing in the next year.
Thank you, Director Helen and your team. Our next item is new business, item number 23-087, adoption of an ordinance imposing a 0.1% sales tax for Transportation Benefit District, or TBD. I'll read the motion into the record. An ordinance of the City of Redmond, Washington, adding a new subsection 3.93.055 to the Redmond Municipal Code, imposing an additional sales and use tax of 0.1% within the boundaries of the Redmond Transportation Benefit District of the purpose of financing the costs associated with transportation improvements in the district as authorized by RCW 36.73.065 and RCW 82.14.0455, providing for severability and establishing an effective date. Councilmember Anderson.
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, this is, sorry. Councilmember Anderson.
I remain thrilled about the amount of public testimony we received on this item, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I join my colleagues in their enthusiasm for a new transportation benefit district for Redmond. I've joined my colleagues in the affirmative in every vote necessary to create and assume control of the transportation benefit district. But since November, we've had a difference of opinion on how it should be funded. And I respect my colleagues' positions and their prior statements on the matter. As I've previously indicated, I'll be voting no on the measure before us tonight. There are a few ways that the council could have funded the benefit district, including a user fee on cars registered in Redmond and the sales tax option that's before us tonight. The sales tax was chosen by a majority of the council because it will in fact raise more money for transportation projects. My primary concern is at whose costs. So by definition, sales taxes are regressive because low-income residents who pay the same sales tax rate as higher income residents are more impacted. They will pay a higher percentage of their income in sales taxes. In this particular application, I'm also concerned about one other thing. For example, residents who live in our urban centers and our transit-oriented developments and who don't own vehicles in those neighborhoods will be carrying the sales tax burden to improve our pavement condition index for roads that service single-family neighborhoods where homes often have multiple vehicles registered and are more frequent road users. While the sales tax will raise more money for the transportation benefit district and our transportation projects, I don't believe it does so fairly. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Carson.
Thank you. And I would just respond that one thing that I like about the sales tax is that anybody who does business in Redmond will pay it. And that means that people who don't live in Redmond will also be helping to fund the system that they use. So I don't know that there's a perfect way to do this, but I do think this is fairer than most, and I will support it.
Thank you. Councilmember Kritzer.
I just wanted to note that, well, my preference would have been to have been able to do the fee based on car usage or a car-related fee to be able to tie this, the revenue for this to what we're actually spending it on, which is roads, which is mostly used or mostly deteriorated due to single occupancy vehicles as well as others. I am in support of this because I do think that it will fund some critical infrastructure for our city. One of the things that's great about living in Redmond is that if you get around, whether it is by car, by bike, by foot, is that in general you can count on our roads and our infrastructure being really good. If you go to other cities, you often have to drive around through potholes, through all kinds of different places, and I want to make sure that we're really continuing to deliver quality to our residents, and for me, that's really the bread and butter of what I feel like I'm here on the City Council to do, and given the information that we received from our Public Works Department about the future of pavement in our city and of the needs, our transportation needs, I think if we want to keep delivering that quality to our residents, then this is a critical tool, and that's why I'll be voting yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a roll call vote starting with Council President Forsyth.
Aye.
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 No.
Aye.
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 And passes 6-1. Thank you all very much. Our last item of business is an executive session to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase, RCW 42.30.1101B for 20 minutes. We will now go into executive session per state law. The executive session is closed to the public. We will return to open session at 10:18. Action is expected to be taken at that time. Executive session participants attending remotely, please leave this meeting and join the executive session Teams meeting. And that passes 7-0. Thank you, everyone. Let's see, that concludes our business items for this meeting. If there is no objection, this meeting is adjourned. Everyone have a wonderful evening.